Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and excited to welcome back our next guest. He's a Catholic theologian and runs Crux Stationalis. Yes, we'll talk about that. Crux Stationalis. It's always fun to say that. But he explores the Catholic faith through the eyes of Rome and the Roman Station Church, and is now working on a newer project with the Cathedral of Salzburg in Austria. Welcome back to the show, Jacob.
Thanks for having me, Keith. Yes, your audience knows me for Crux Stationalis. I've come on here a few times and we've discussed that reality, and hopefully they follow me. That's my shameless self-promotion here. But I also manage the social media, as you said, for the Salzburg Cathedral in Salzburg, Austria. And I've been doing that for some years now. The title is Dom zu Salzburg, which is just German for the Cathedral of Salzburg. So
how did
that's
you
what
get
we're here
involved
to talk
in that?
about.
Yeah, how did you get involved in that?
Through Crux Stationalis, seeing the beautiful content from Rome, just desiring to also show the beauty of Salzburg. It's a bit of a different reality because obviously I have the freedom on Crux Stationalis to show the beauty of the Catholic faith through the eyes of Rome. Sort of, I'm my own editorial team. I'm the guy out there filming. I'm the guy creating the content. So it's interesting that I don't speak German. I live in Rome, and so it's a bit strange, one could say, but it really shows the benefit of parishes, cathedrals, dioceses, monumental places, especially here in Europe, because there's so many coming on pilgrimage, so many coming as tourists. It shows I'm a micro example of what it means for these places to be online. I don't speak German. I live in Rome. I don't live in Salzburg. I can go every so often, according to my schedule. But I have to translate the reality that's there to a way that's understandable for me and hopefully understandable to the audience. And that's sort of the benefit, especially in these sort of, as for Americans coming to Europe, these foreign realities. Not everyone's going to be speaking English, not everyone, especially here in Italy as well, but also in Salzburg. And so I'm able to understand, hopefully it helps the locals as well. Someone coming from a different perspective, able to see their traditions, the patrimony they have, the architecture, the art, the history, and give an opportunity for not just foreigners and pilgrims to embrace it, but also for the locals to appreciate in this new sort of media form of social media.
Yeah, it's nice. I can see for the locals there, that kind of also builds that sense of belonging or accessibility, because now they're part of something. They're following their parish, and they can always be somewhat up to date on what's happening and just enjoy the beauty of. And that, I was just thinking too, looking back, I don't go to the same parish that I grew up in, but I do follow them, and I can always just revert. And it's always nice to see how they're doing and still be a part of them, which, this is something relatively new in our history, where if we move, and I'm sure you keep up with the parish that you grew up in Nebraska, right?
Yeah, Nebraska, yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we're starting to see this our church embracing this form of communication, as opposed to just kind of slowly taking up on it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you a little trick with social media. What you can do is you can look to those who have these social media realities and model your own parish, your own diocese in the same way. You can see the styles they use. You can see what they focus on. You can, of course, adapt it to your own local reality. But as you said, social media is new in a lot of ways. We kind of, maybe we're exhausted with it. We're exhausted with all these different apps and all these different adaptations we have to do of our content to longer format, shorter format, photos, good communication. And we've spoke about this before. Even the church as a whole has to deal with this. And really Pope Francis has had to deal with it in a new way that no other pope has had to deal with. And I don't think there's enough credit given to the Pope, given to the Holy See, to the Vatican, of what kind of work that is, what it means to translate this message, which is for everyone, that of the good news of the gospel to a little screen, to YouTube's, to TV. And well, TV has been obviously around, but adapting this content to digital content has been a challenge. And or rather, the communication, we keep, on the human level, we keep bumping into what it means for this to be so challenging. And for example, the dicastery for communication in the Vatican has the biggest budget, which some people might say that doesn't make sense, but there's so many facets of this online communication that has to be sort of covered, and the Jubilee's coming. There's more and more efforts going into that. And we have one example from, there's a lot of examples, but we also have this example from the recent in-flight presser that the Pope gave on his return trip from Belgium. He was just in Asia at the beginning of September, and then at the end of September, he goes to Luxembourg and Belgium, two historically Catholic countries, very Catholic. Even the former king, who died in 1993, but in 1990 had to abdicate the throne in order to defend life. And there's a lot of news networks right now which are telling his story even today. And in the flight, he was asked a question from a comment he made at a Catholic university in Belgium, and celebrating their 400th year of anniversary as a Catholic university. And some of the things he said seemed a bit too Catholic, which blows my mind, and probably confounds your listeners as well. And if we hear them, we would think, well, that's just helpful Catholic teaching. That's just helpful understanding of who the human person is. And so that's always a challenge in this social media reality. Sound bites, thumbnails, all these realities can distract us, but also really can be a benefit for communicating clearly and precisely, and also breaking through the noise of criticism of the church, of the Pope. And to be honest, when it comes to this trip in Belgium, which was literally just 6 days ago, the news cycle's done. So how on social media do we continue to share this, or to go back to these good words that the Pope said in defense of human life, in defense of the male presbyterate? And also, he framed it in a very interesting way. I don't know if you saw this, but he was comparing the priestly ministry to the ministry of Our Lady. And that was seen as an antiquated idea. There's a lot of criticisms now. Some people are still criticizing, but he was saying, look, and he took this from a very popular, famous theologian, Hans von Balthasar, who reflected precisely on the ministry of the priest, of Peter, of the priesthood, and the ministry of Mary as sort of emblematic of the church's ministry, because the church is a woman, the Pope said. And I'm confounded as to why this is such a contentious, sort of discussion, because she's the bride of Christ, and there's a lot of dignity that's seen of the feminine and women because of that, because Christ decided to take this church as a bride and to be the bridegroom of this mystical body that we are part of. So it's always a challenge. And like I said, the news cycle is finished in that regard, but the criticisms are there. And I have a friend who was writing in the German world, and they see the Pope as defensive and sort of out of touch.
Really?
Which like I said, the church is spending the most money here in the Vatican on communication. And so it's I don't know how it's that out of touch. I'm going to paraphrase a bit, but he said, the church sees the ministry of woman in the life of the church as something even greater than the priestly ministry fulfilled by men. He said, I can always talk about the dignity of women, something that I cannot say about men. The church is a woman. She is the bride of Jesus. And he goes further and he says, to masculize women is not human. Women, I always say, are more important than men because the church is the bride of Jesus. Who else is saying such beautiful things than the church, than the Pope, who's the vicar of Christ on earth?
That's right. Nobody else.
Nobody else. Yeah.
Well, I get a quick question before we transition over to our after show clubhouse. If someone's out there, they feel a calling to help with this communication, maybe with their parish, they don't have a presence. Any advice to our listeners out there who want to be able to have their parish's presence online?
You have to know what your community is, and you have to stick to that. You can't, like I said, you can look to the other pages to see what they're doing, but you can't just copy. You can't just mimic these other realities. Otherwise, you're going to lose the essence of who you are as a community, of the patrimony that you have and possess as a Catholic in that local setting.
Great point. Yeah, you don't want to become a meme page in your Catholic church parish. Thank you so much for joining us, Jacob. We really appreciate you.